witnessed another grim milestone as the infection tally crossed 200,000 mark. It has already been reported that the country's spread rate is highest in the South Asian region. Given the scenario, the state needs to tackle the COVID-19 crisis with more seriousness, but its modus operandi has been a far cry, to say the least, to deal with the ongoing health crisis. Good morning, I'm Sarah Chitrakar and these are the top stories of the hour. Prime Minister Oli says he is to lead the government for full 5 as per public mandate. Supreme Court paves way for NCP Vice Chair Gautam to become a minister. The coronavirus cases crossed 200,000 mark with another haul of over 2,500 cases. The government lacks technology to store anti-COVID vaccines if procured. NEPSE crosses 1,700 mark for the first time in 4 years. The regulatory board reluctant to provide license to banks acting on the interest of broker companies. And Hong Kong's pro-democracy lawmakers resign after 4 of their colleagues were disqualified. The move seen as an attempt to curb Hong Kong's freedom by China. The number of coronavirus cases has crossed 200,000 mark as a total of 2,569 new cases of COVID-19 were confirmed yesterday, taking the total case tally to 202,329. Meanwhile, the death tally has climbed to 1,174 as 26 more individuals have succumbed to the virus yesterday. According to the Health Ministry, a total of 10,081 swab samples were tested yesterday, taking the test tally to over 1.57 million. The PCR test responded with 1,261 positive cases in the federal capital, as Kathmandu district confirmed 976 cases, while Lalitpur reported 204 and Bhaktapur registered 81 cases. Likewise, 1,666 individuals registered full recovery yesterday, taking the national recovery tally to 162,243, while the recovery rate stands at 80.3%. According to the Health Ministry, there are over 38,000 active cases in the country, with 10,519 corona patients in isolation centers, 28,393 in home isolation and 1,109 in various quarantine facilities. The ministry informed that 95 patients are receiving treatment with ventilator support, while 382 are in intensive cares across different hospitals of the country. Vaccines that are considered the most reliable in controlling the COVID-19 are in the final stages of testing, and as efforts in various parts of the world have shown signs of success. However, Nepal does not have the capacity and readiness to procure and even store anti-COVID vaccines. The development of vaccines to control the global pandemic of coronavirus has reached its final stage, as more than a dozen vaccines are in the third stage of testing in several countries, including the US, Germany, Brazil, Russia, Argentina and South Africa, among others. Following the initial success, many countries across the world have intensified the management of storage and distribution systems by booking vaccines in advance. Even as the government back home has formed a 3-member committee to procure vaccines through G2G process, the country does not have the technology to bring a vaccine and store it, as anti-COVID vaccines need to be stored at a temperature of at least a minimum 20 to minus 94 degrees Celsius. These vaccines require a special type of refrigerator with ultra-cold chain technology for storage, which is rarely available even in other developing nations. However, the government has not made enough efforts to introduce the technology in the country. Until now, the vaccines used in Nepal have been stored at a temperature of -2 to -8 degrees Celsius. The government is also not clear, as the storage technology required for anti-COVID vaccine is expensive and needs to be installed at a number of places. Experts say that at least 7 special refrigerators are required for the storage of anti-COVID vaccines, for which the government needs to gear up to manage the storage and distribution system, along with procurement process to bring the pandemic under control. Chairman of the ruling Nepal Communist Party, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, has said that he would lead the government for the full term, as he has been given the mandate to run the government for 5 years. Premier Oli, who reached Sankwa Sabha yesterday morning, a day after refusing the demand of 5 Secretariat members, including Executive Chairman Pushpa Kamal Dahal, to convene the Secretariat meeting, said that he would lead the government for the full 5 years as he is in good health. Without elaborating, Prime Minister Oli clarified that there was no truth in the rumors that he was stepping down from the premiership. The descendant faction had submitted the memorandum to Premier Oli demanding a Secretariat meeting within 2 days after holding the meetings at party headquarters in Dhumbarai on Friday and Saturday last week. Even as Prime Minister Oli bluntly rejected to call for the meeting, the two chairmen sat for dialogue on Tuesday in Balwatar, while Executive Chairman Dahal had proposed to convene the meeting today. However, keeping the issue intact, Premier Oli reached Sankwa Sabha yesterday morning. Meanwhile, the disgruntled faction has been mulling over the next course of action after Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli had rejected their proposal, however, could not make any concrete decision regarding the dispute. The Constitutional Bench of Supreme Court has cleared the way for Vice Chairman of the ruling Nepal Communist Party, Bamdev Gautam, to execute his role as a member of the National Assembly despite a dissenting opinion of one of the justices. The decision has meanwhile cleared any obstacles in his way to assume the position of a minister. Leader Gautam has been allowed to serve as a lawmaker after majority justices of 5-member constitutional bench refused to uphold the interim order issued by a single bench Justice Ananda Mohan Bhattrai of Apex Court on 23rd of September. However, the dispute is yet to be settled altogether. The hearing of 2 separate petitions filed against the appointment of Leader Gautam as a lawmaker in the National Assembly, questioning his eligibility at the Supreme Court, was carried out yesterday in the 5-member constitutional bench. Chief Justice Cholendra Samsher Rana and Justices Deepak Kumar Karki, Hari Krishna Karki and Bishambar Prasad Shrestha opined that Leader Gautam should not be barred from executing his role as a lawmaker of the upper house, while Justice Ishwar Prasad Khatiwada expressed his dissent over the verdict. President Bidya Devi Bhandari had appointed Leader Gautam as a member of the National Assembly on 17th of September, acting on the government recommendation. As per the Constitution, a vanquished leader cannot be elected or appointed as a lawmaker through other means for at least one term of parliament. The stock market has witnessed significant trading and increase in NEPSE index for the second consecutive day yesterday. The NEPSE index has gone above 1,700 points for the first time in almost 4 years, while shares were traded above 4 billion rupees yesterday. The NEPSE index closed at 1,707.67 points, gaining 28.89 points. A total of 125 million units of shares of 195 companies were traded for 4.1 billion rupees. Non-life insurance group gained a massive 339 points, followed by manufacturing group with 200.21 points and trading group with 149.83 points. In percentage terms, a trading group witnessed almost a 10% surge yesterday. Groups other than finance group have raised the overall NEPSE index. Investors of Salt Trading, Citizens Investment Trust, Vishal Bazar Company and Sanima General Insurance earned the maximum points. The stock market had witnessed an 8-month high transaction on Tuesday as NEPSE surged by 26 points with more than 4 billion rupees transaction. Even as the banks have been asked to allow broker license to expand the share market to the rural areas, the process has been halted due to the reluctance of the regulatory board, the Securities Board of Nepal or SEBIN. The banks have not been able to obtain permission due to request of broker companies and the vague report prepared by the Parliamentary Committee. The government had formed a committee led by Deputy Governor Shivaraj Shrestha to study and address the problem seen in monetary and capital market as investors had protested against the declining stock market 2 years ago. The committee recommended providing broker license to subsidiary company of Banks for Development of the Capital Market. However, even after 2 years, not a single bank has been allowed to trade in securities. Even as 11 banks applied at the Nepal Stock Exchange for broker license, the process was halted after the Finance Committee under the Parliament said that the committee would carry detailed study regarding the issue. Presently, the committee has asked broker license to be provided to the banks while setting various conditions. In the meantime, the regulatory board, SEBIN, is also not in favor of expediting the process at the request of broker companies. Broker companies have been protesting out of fear that they might lose their market and competitive commission rate if the banks are provided broker license. They have been approached Finance Ministry and lawmakers of the Finance Committee. The Parliamentary Committee has sought the views from stakeholders regarding several issues, including actual share in the stock market and number of brokers in fully automated transactions, among others. Even the authorities at the SEBIN have started lobbying that there is no point in permitting banks for broker license, saying that the transaction is fully automated, while banks seem positive in receiving the license. The government of Sudar Pashchim province has been criticized for its lackluster role in controlling the coronavirus pandemic in the province. In this context, in our Public Voice segment, we had asked lawmakers of the province why the role of Sudar Pashchim province government has been dismal in controlling the pandemic. Let's take a look at what they have to say.
Public Voice.
एकदमै युद्ध स्तरमा लाग्नुपर्ने स्थिति हो, तर अब प्रदेश सरकार अलमलमा र अरु नै कुरामा हो कि अथवा कता हो भन्ने समस्या जनगुनासो आएको छ।
बिग्रिँदै छ अवस्था चाहिँ पनि हाम्रो नेपालमा। यसप्रति चाहिँ प्रदेश सरकार चाहिँ गम्भीर हुनुपर्छ।
प्रदेश सरकारसँग पैसा छ, त्यो फन्ड प्रशस्त छ, त्यसलाई चाहिने हरेक चाहिने स्थानीय सरकारमा चाहिने आवश्यक जनशक्ति र आवश्यक स्रोत दिने हो भने त्यसलाई धेरै व्यवस्थित गर्न सकिन्छ।
पहिला जतिखेर कोरोना थिएन, विदेशबाट नेपालमा आउने युवाहरू अथवा संक्रमण त्यति बढेको थिएन, त्यो अवस्थामा धेरै रकमहरू खर्चियो। त्यसैले यो सही समयमा सही ढंगले सदुपयोग गर्न नसकेको कारणले गर्दा यसले उच्च रूप लिइरहेको छ।
जनताको इच्छा अनुसार अब सबैको पब्लिकको भनाइ अनुसार त्यति पुगेको जस्तो महसुस भएको छैन।
जिल्ला हस्पिटलहरू छन्, तर त्यो अनुरूपको जनशक्ति व्यवस्थापन गरिने कुराहरूमा अझै पनि अभाव छ। त्यसैले गर्दाखेरि यो विषय भनेको अलिकति जटिल हुनुभन्दा अगावै सरकारले चाहिँ यो विषयमा सोच्नुपर्छ भन्ने कुराहरू हामीले पनि भनेका छौँ। सदन भइदिएको भए हामी सदन मार्फत पनि सरकारको ध्यान आकर्षण गर्थ्यौँ।
कोभिड-19 को लाई अलिकति नजरअन्दाज अथवा यसलाई अलि हेलचेक्राइको रूपमा लिएको जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई।
It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
Here's the question: why has Securities Board delayed the process of authorizing banks to operate share transactions? Your options are A, enough brokers, B, reluctant regulator, and C, influence of broker company. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And before wrapping up, here's a look at the top stories once again. Prime Minister Oli says he is to lead the government for full 5 as per public mandate. Supreme Court paves way for NCP Vice Chairman Gautam to become a minister. The coronavirus case crossed 200,000 mark with another haul of over 2,500 cases. The government lacks technology to store anti-COVID vaccines if procured. NEPSE crosses 1,700 mark for the first time in 4 years. The regulatory board reluctant to provide a license to banks acting on the interest of broker companies. And Hong Kong's pro-democracy lawmakers resign after 4 of their colleagues were disqualified. The move seen as Chinese attempt to curb Hong Kong's freedom. And those were our latest headlines. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.